You built the spreadsheet yourself, which is either impressive or a warning sign, and now you're staring at a row you're pretty sure is a typo. It took you 19 years to save your first $250,000. 19 years of packed lunches and skipped weddings and telling people you were busy. And your own spreadsheet says the next $750,000, 3 times as much money lands almost 3 years sooner than that. You check the formula, you widen the column, you assume you dragged a decimal somewhere. You didn't. The row is fine. This isn't a video about discipline or manifesting. This is about one arithmetic threshold where the math quietly changes hands, where you stop pushing the thing and the thing starts pulling you. There's a single number you can work out in about 9 seconds that decides whether the internet's favorite claim, $250,000 is halfway to $1 million, is true for you or a lie. Stick around, because there's a version of this where $250,000 is nowhere near halfway, and you need to know which version you're living in. Let's define the claim properly. In dollars, $250,000 obviously isn't halfway. It's a quarter of the way. The claim is about time. It says the years spent clawing from $0 to $250,000 roughly equal the years from there to $1 million, which sounds insane since the second leg is 3 times bigger. Here's why it's possible. From $250,000 to $1 million is exactly 2 doublings. $250K becomes $500K. $500K becomes $1 million. That's your entire back half. And a doubling doesn't care how big your number is. Doubling $40,000 and doubling $400,000 take the same time at the same rate. The market doesn't charge extra for bigger numbers. Your effort does. Meet Bernadette, 31, works in medical billing, makes about $70,000 a year, puts $500 a month into a target date fund at 7% average return. That's the entire strategy. How long until she crosses $250,000? 19 years and 7 months. For most of those years, her account looks like a savings account with an attitude problem around $20,000 by year 3, $87,000 by year 10. She's putting in $6,000 a year, and the market is handing back pocket change. Year 7 is where she almost quits. She opens the app, sees $54,000, and realizes she personally put in $42,000 of it. 7 years and the market's entire contribution is $12,000. She could reasonably think it isn't worth it. That's the moment most people walk away while being completely right about the arithmetic in front of them and completely wrong about it being the whole picture. She doesn't stop. So from $250,000, how long to $1 million? Same $500 a month, same 7%, 16 years and 10 months. Her back half, 3 times the money, is almost 3 years faster than her front half. For Bernadette, the milestone isn't halfway. It's better than halfway. And nothing on her screen ever announces it. Here's the mechanism. There's a balance where your portfolio earns more in a year than you put in, call it your crossover. Take what you contribute annually, divide by your expected return as a decimal. Bernadette contributes $6,000 a year. $6,000 divided by 0.07 is $85,700. The moment her balance touches roughly $86,000, her portfolio starts contributing more each year than she does. She becomes the junior partner in her own account quietly, around year 10, with no notification. Now meet Lel. 34, project manager, makes $140,000, invests $2,000 a month at the same 7%. He hits $250,000 in 7 years and 10 months. Bernadette needed almost 20. Feels great, right? How long to go from there to $1 million? 11 years and 8 months. His back half takes 50% longer than his front half. Run his crossover. $24,000 a year divided by 0.07 is $342,900. When Lel crosses $250,000, he's still the engine. His deposits still outrank the market. For him, the handoff happens later. So the honest version, $250,000 is halfway when your contributions are modest enough that the market does the heavy lifting, which describes most people watching. The less you can afford to put in, the more true this video is about you. That's not a consolation prize. That's just the math. Here's the exact line. Work out the contribution where front half and back half take exactly the same number of years. Then check that person's crossover at 5%, 6%, 7%, 8%, 10%. It's always $125,000. Your return rate changes how long the trip takes. It never moves that line. And $125,000 is exactly half of $250,000. So the milestone is halfway to $1 million when your crossover is half the milestone. Skip the math, just ask, what does $250,000 earn you in a year at your expected return? At 7%, that's $17,500. Cut it in half, $729 a month. Keep your monthly contribution under that, and your $250,000 is halfway or better, with the easier half still ahead. Over it, and your the milestone comes early, and the bigger climb is still coming. Charlie Munger said something like this: 30 years before anyone charted it, the first $100,000 is brutal, but after that you can ease off. Adjusted for inflation, his $100,000 is about $222,000 today. The internet rounding it up to $250,000 wasn't drama, it was inflation. Here's the payoff: almost nobody sticks around to collect. Take Bernadette the moment she crosses $250,000, and imagine she never invests another dollar again, layoff, kid, whatever the reason. At 7%, that $250,000 becomes $1 million in 20 years and 6 months, with zero further contributions. She becomes essentially a professional sitter. Not because she was smart, because she was early and then she was absent. Now the uncomfortable half. 4 things push your real crossover further out than the clean math suggests. 1. Average returns are a statistical fiction. From 2000 to 2009, the S&P 500 returned about -1% a year, including dividends an entire lost decade. Where that decade lands relative to your crossover matters far more than the average itself. 2. Nobody's forecasting 7% right now. Current valuation measures sit near historic highs, and major forecasters are projecting returns closer to 3 to 6% going forward. At 5%, your monthly line drops from $729 to about $521. And Bernadette's crossover stretches to roughly $120,000, but the halfway symmetry still holds, just with a few extra grinding years. 3. $1 million is shrinking. 20 years out at 3% inflation, $1 million buys what about $554,000 buys today. Aim higher than the number in any title. 4. Fees are the cheapest fix in personal finance. Take Bernadette's fund from 7% down to 6% with a 1% fee, and her 20-year 6-month coast to $1 million becomes 23 years and 10 months 3 extra years. For a number small enough, you'd need reading glasses to notice it on a statement. One more reality check. If your net worth is under $200,000, you're not behind, you're the middle. Median household net worth is around $193,000. The number people quote you, the average, sits over $1.6 million, dragged up by a small number of enormous fortunes. Average 401k balances tell the same story. Averages in 6 figures, medians far lower. If you're staring at a balance in the 30s wondering what's wrong with you, nothing. That's roughly where half the country stands. And this isn't a just try harder video. A record share of retirement plan participants took hardship withdrawals last year, mostly to avoid eviction or cover medical bills. If that's been you, you didn't fail a discipline test. For a lot of people, the emergency fund and the retirement account are the same account. But here's the real evidence this works. People who've saved continuously in the same retirement plan for 15 years have an average balance north of $500,000. Not stock pickers, people who didn't stop. So take the one line and leave the rest, not the $250,000, the number underneath it. Roughly $729 a month at 7%, or whatever half your expected annual return, $250,000, works out to for you. Under that line, the hard half is behind you and the big half is the easy one. Over it, you bought speed instead of leverage, and you should know that's the trade you made, rather than find out at 50. Wherever you land, the grind you're in right now isn't a verdict on you. Before your crossover, your savings rate is the only real lever, which is why it feels like pure grind, because it is. After it, the market becomes the bigger lever, and your job changes from producing to simply not interfering. That sheet you built, the one with the row you thought was a typo, you didn't find a trick in there. You found the place where the sentence stops being about you. For years, that account grew because you showed up. Then, with no notification and no confetti, it started growing because it existed. The $250,000 was never the achievement. It's just your receipt for surviving the part where it was all on you.